This Pioneer Field Agronomist Scott Eversgerd with a May 1st agronomy update. With all the recent rainfall, obviously it's going to be a pretty busy agronomy week here in the next week to 10 days as we look at taking the time to evaluate the crop that's been planted. Fortunately, there was a lot of corn that did get planted a couple weeks ago. That corn is up. Most of that is probably going to handle this situation okay. The unfortunate part is I also know there was a whole lot of crop planted in the few days leading up to the big rain events. In those cases, it's really going to be on a field-by-field basis. Experience tells us that the field that you expect the least to make it sometimes will, and the field that maybe went in 4 days before the rain and you really expect would have no trouble, those are the fields that sometimes have the most trouble. The biggest thing here I can urge is to have patience. It will take some time to figure out exactly what this crop's going to do, whether it's going to get out of the ground, whether it's not. And with the forecast not looking extremely great for this coming week, probably not going to get an opportunity to do a whole lot of evaluation. It's probably going to come the week after that. As we do get an opportunity to maybe get back in the field at some point, it will be important to get the planters rolling again on maybe some acres that have not been seeded, and that way we can continue to evaluate the fields that have already been seeded and see if we can establish some stands that are viable to keep. A couple things that come up: the flooded corn. It really comes down to temperature of the water, temperature of the ground, whether the water is moving, whether the water is still. All that will play an effect on whether that crop makes it or not. So definitely something to look at there. Nitrogen loss is also something we're going to be talking a lot about. We'll have to continue to evaluate that. We do have some tools out there now. Maybe prior to a few years ago we didn't have, but can definitely help us in managing some nitrogen loss decisions as well. The other question we're going to get is, even if I go back to corn from a corn replant standpoint, as we get into mid-May, late May, do I think about switching hybrids? For the most part, as we navigate through the month of May, we want to stay the course. We know that hybrids have the ability to kind of change their GDU requirements as we get a later planting date, and you will subsequently end up with basically the same maturity in the fall. So for the month of May, we'll continue with the maturities we have and really not look at switching anything. What about the soybean effect from maybe some applied nitrogen? The question we often get. Really, what the soybean plant will do, if you would plant it into a field where nitrogen was applied, it will just basically consume the nitrogen versus nodulating. So you will have reduced nodulation, but then the plant will pick up the applied nitrogen. So really no direct negative effect if we would go to beans on some of these fields that are flooded and maybe did have some nitrogen applied. We also, through these events, had significant winds in some cases. We're seeing quite a bit of lodging in wheat in different spots. One thing I would invite you to do is, if you drive by a wheat field, your own or your neighbors, or your neighbors, get out and take a look at those spots that maybe did lodge. And I think what you'll find is the head size generally in those areas is larger than the areas that may be right adjacent to it and are still standing. That's one of the reasons we continue to push guys on nitrogen and really push that envelope and find that fine line between standability and lodging, because what you will see is that head size where maybe there was an overlap in nitrogen or something like that, you will see a definite increase in head size, which ultimately leads to more yield. So a lot going on here this week, this coming 2 weeks. As always, if you need any more information, please contact your local Pioneer sales rep. Thanks.